Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the transfer portal and all of the craziness that is about to unfold over the next couple of weeks there, but now let's talk about Caleb Williams and let's get into some of the criticisms around him over especially the last couple of weeks. I've noticed there's been quite the uptick as we get closer and closer to the draft. There's going to be more things to be said about the top pick. There's no two ways about that. So definitely some things that Caleb Williams, was in line for as he was the top player in the draft. That kind of just comes with the territory. But some of this stuff is a little goofy. I honestly have been holding on to this topic for quite some time because most of the comments around him, most of the criticism around him, I thought was dumb, to be totally honest with you. I thought it was pointless to even talk about and was not really worth your time or, frankly, my time. But there has been a couple more criticisms that I think deserve a little bit more of attention, and I'll just go through kind of what I think about all of them because there are some ridiculous ones, but there are some fair ones also kind of mixed in there. But let's start with the more trivial stuff, the more ridiculous stuff, and then we'll get to the stuff that actually could be concerning for him. So the most ridiculous and trivial knock is and talk around him has comfortably been him painting his nails or doing photo shoots with GQ or whatever you want to say. It's just beyond ridiculous. And it's not necessarily that, I'm hating on any one particular person or going after people in any way, but if that's the thing you're worried about, I really hope you're not holding out hope to be in a front office one day, because you will not be. That pretty much as clean as I can put that. That is beyond ridiculous criticism of him and has absolutely nothing to do with the football player he will be at the next level. Then I heard some about, the emotional moments he had throughout college, whether it was, after the Pac-12 championship game or after some of the games last year, showing some of that emotion and being a little bit less, football tough than some people expect him to be. Again, I think this is ridiculous. I see how some people might think this is a bigger deal than other ones, but I don't seem to care, if I'm being totally honest. To me, him crying or him showing emotion after those games shows me that he cares about his team and his teammates in this game. So, you can be upset about that if you want. That's another one that I just don't want to spend too much time on because I think it's just goofy, if I'm being totally honest. Now let's get to the most recent piece of criticism from Greg McElroy that I believe came out yesterday, or at least Caleb Williams responded to it yesterday, saying that he has not faced any adversity. So I shrugged off the first two because, they're trivial, they're dumb, they're not really worth talking about because they have nothing to do with him being a quarterback. But this one's a little bit ridiculous. I think this one is one that, first of all, doesn't make sense, and second of all, is just a little unfair to Caleb Williams, I think. So, first of all, the idea that anyone at Caleb Williams' level of success in this sport has not faced adversity is crazy. I understand that he is remarkably talented. I understand he has physical gifts that most people do not have. It doesn't change that the amount of work that he has put in to get to this point is insane. Most of us would never do the amount of work that Caleb Williams has put in to get to the point where he is a Heisman winner, where he is going number one overall and getting all this talk around him. So the idea that any athlete, whether it is, football or basketball or swimming, if anyone in an athletic position where they are at the top of their game, they are the most talked about thing in that sport at the time being, like Caleb Williams is right now in football, they have gone through a remarkable amount of adversity, whether it's injuries or just waking up at 5 a.m. and going to that extra workout and doing the things that not everyone else is willing to do. So that part of it is crazy in and of itself. Any elite athlete has gone through adversity pretty much every single day as they go on that journey to become an elite athlete. But second, let's focus a little bit more in on Caleb Williams. The idea that he hasn't faced adversity is crazy as well. He obviously, has done incredible things throughout his college career, but I think people are somewhat forgetting how his college career started. He walked into an Oklahoma room where Spencer Rattler, now we can have revisionist history and talk about what happened in the rest of his football career, but when he came in, Spencer Rattler was getting as many rave reviews as anyone in the country. He was all over the place. There were people picking him to be the number one pick in the draft. There were people picking him to be the Heisman winner. I mean, Lincoln Riley had already spit out a ton of Heisman winners at that point, so it wasn't the craziest thought. The kid had crazy arm strength, had tons of remarkable things, which he still has, to be totally honest with you. We can break that down in the draft segment, but Spencer Rattler coming in was the prodigal son, to be totally honest with you. There was really no chance that he was not going to be the starter going into the season, and no Oklahoma fan would have told you going into that season that Spencer Rattler was ever going to lose that job. They never thought that was going to be in the cards. Now, once he did in that Texas game, Caleb Williams didn't look back. He walked into that game, absolutely tore Texas to pieces, and that's coming from a Texas fan. That was a tough day. I won't lie to you. He was just on another level that entire day. So he didn't look back once he got on the field, but not being on the field after being, the guy for so long is not an easy thing to overcome. And people might, think it is, but even as a freshman, there are things that you have to deal with that you've never had to deal with before, especially being a backup quarterback. So that's one example. Then he transferred to USC, and obviously, he was going over with his coach. There was some staff members going over with him and some players as well. So there was a comfort level. I'm not going to act like him transferring is the same thing as some of these other kids who are going into totally new situations transferring, but he did have to deal with some new things. There's no two ways about that. Anytime you move colleges or move in general, there's a lot of adapting to do to the new lifestyle that you're under, especially when you're going from Norman, Oklahoma to LA. It's quite the adjustment, but he adjusted to it obviously very, very well. I think he was a little bit more at home in LA than in Norman, but he went on to have his Heisman season, do incredible things throughout that season, and then he hurt his hammy in the Pac-12 title game. And a game they likely would have won if he was on the field. I think everyone tends to believe that. But that's something that, for whatever reason, we just kind of throw by the wayside. We talk about how he's never won anything. We talk about how he's, hasn't gotten to a college football playoff. But at the end of the day, he was, a popped hamstring away from a Pac-12 title, and that's something totally out of his control. And also, he ended up playing the entire game and fighting tooth and nail to try to win that game against Utah. It just wasn't in the cards because of that injury. And then finally, the final year in college did not go as planned. Period. End of story. They wanted to make a championship-type run, and they ended 7-7, largely because of things that were totally out of his control. The defensive side of the ball, some, crazy stuff that Caleb Williams had nothing to do with. So it led to a ton of controversy around him and his team. So, you can say all you want that this kid, has ultimate talent and has walked through college football and has not faced any adversity, but I just don't buy that. I will never buy that for pretty much anyone that has, done elite things at college football. Now, there are more hurdles for some others. When you talk about someone like Stetson Bennett or Baker Mayfield, those were walk-ons that had to make their way up the ranks. That's a little bit harder. I'm not going to act like they aren't, but the idea that Caleb Williams has not battled and has not faced adversity to get to this point is just ridiculous. So that's another one that I am not a fan of, but we're done with the goofy criticism, the one that I'm not giving a lot of, putting a lot of stock in, but let's get to the ones that actually I think could be kind of an issue when you look at this guy. So Caleb Williams is a remarkable prospect. He is on a really, really elite level, but he's not the same level prospect as Trevor Lawrence or as Andrew Luck. In my mind, I just don't see him on the same level as those guys, and there's a couple of reasons. He's only a notch below, very, very close to that type of level, but I don't think he is that elite level prospect that those guys were. And I think there are some worries about his ability to read defenses and kind of go through, the progressions he needs to go through when they're good at disguising coverages. You saw the Notre Dame game this past year. Marcus Freeman is as good as there is in the country at setting up different coverages and messing with different things. And it messed with him. There's no two ways about that. So I think that's something at the next level that you could be a little bit worried about. He also has kind of this Superman tendency. He's so remarkable with his athletic ability that there's times when he will leave clean pockets and try to make that highlight play during times. And some of that is, out of necessity for some of the O-line plays. Some of that is just him being him. And that's stuff that just can't really happen in the NFL. Now, there are certain guys that kind of make it happen, the Josh Allens of the world. Every now and then will make just ridiculous plays, but you can't do that on a consistent basis, and Caleb Williams has gotten a little bit comfortable doing that, so that's another thing I would be a little bit worried about is just he could get himself into more trouble than he needs to on certain plays as he goes through the early parts of his career. And then finally, Caleb Williams does not miss a ton of throws. He's a very accurate quarterback, but those deep crossers that are more about timing and less about arm talent are a little bit tougher for him. The ones that are a little bit more mundane, to be totally honest with you, tend to be a little bit tougher. If he misses those early on in his career, they likely won't be falling to the turf. They likely will be in the hands of a defender running the other way down the field. And if those start to pile up, then Bears fans will have a little bit of deja vu. But at the end of the day, this is a guy that is remarkably talented. There's no two ways about that. I think anyone that has watched him is just insane. Is just shows or knows exactly what this kid is about, knows how remarkable he is on the football field. Now, there is one final concern of mine that it's hard to kind of gauge how big of a concern this actually is or can be until he is drafted and we see how he reacts with his teammates. But the first three criticisms, the ones that I felt were ridiculous and I didn't spend too much time on, there's a reality where some of his future teammates or some of his future coaches or whoever don't think those are so silly, don't think those are as goofy and trivial as I do. And if they do think that, then it could cause some issues. I'm not going to lie. He's going to be under a microscope the second he gets onto a team. His teammates are going to be watching him very, very closely. So he's got to be, ready to roll, ready to be a team player first and foremost, but also be a leader, be the guy that he has been for the last couple of years and kind of develop those great relationships that he's developed at USC and Oklahoma. I mean, all of his teammates speak very glowingly about this guy. So as long as he can handle that part of it, I think it won't be too big of an issue. So he's someone that will be under scrutiny every single turn he makes. You're a top pick in the draft. It kind of comes with the territory. If he makes missteps, there will be plenty of people ready to jump all over him. So he's going to have to be very diligent. He's going to have to be smart, not make any big-time mistakes. But at the end of the day, I have full confidence in his ability to handle this situation and absolutely dominate at the next level. Now, I don't know how quickly that happens. I think he's someone that some people might think is going to walk into the league and change it overnight. I don't necessarily see that as the same thing. I think he's someone that could take a year and a half to really, really hit the strides that he's capable of. But as we know, when he hits those ceilings that he has, there's very few quarterbacks that you can find on planet Earth that are as talented as this kid. So, a lot of people will get caught up in the trivial stuff. A lot of people will talk about the nails painting and the wearing a dress and a cover of a magazine and doing X, Y, and Z after it doesn't matter. If you want to get caught up in trivial stuff, that's on you. If you want to talk about football, I'm here for you. So I understand that there is going to be criticism around this kid. I understand that he is someone that a lot of people want to be talking about right now, but a lot of the criticism that he has gotten thus far is just pointless and just does not add anything to the conversation and doesn't do anything for me or for any scout when they're talking about this kid. But I'll leave that there. We might be talking about that later on as the draft gets closer, but for the time being, I'll leave that be, and we'll take our second break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about recruiting, a little bit of a recruiting update. It's been a big time couple of weeks as spring games have started to happen. More and more visits have started to happen, so commitments are starting to roll in, and I will get you updated on all of that right after this.